And at this time, we'll take a moment of silence for personal reflection. Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting and workshop of August 7th.
So moved. Second.
Okay, first, Connolly, second, Moslin, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to public hearings, which invite in the top. Up to
Thank you, Madam Chairman, school board members, superintendent, Mr. Alfonso. Tonight, we are going to recognize our National PTA Schools of Excellence. And to tell you more about it, I would like to call up the president of the County Council of PTAs, Denise Nicholas. She also has some pictures.
Chairwoman Armstrong, Board Superintendent, thank you so much for your time this evening. We are very proud and honored, and this is Kelly McDowell, our Pasco County Council PTA Treasurer, and I'm Denise Nicholas, your Pasco County Council PTA President, 27245 Silver Thatch Drive, West Chapel, Florida. We are very proud and honored to announce our very first 3 schools of excellence here in Pasco County. Our first one we'd like to recognize is Double Ranch Elementary.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Wine. I'm the PTA president of Double Ranch Elementary.
well, thank you.
The next school we'd like to bring up is Deer Park Elementary.
I'm Sarah Callow, PTA president.
Thank you.
And our third school we'd like to introduce tonight is Dr. John Long Middle School.
Right, we're going to go have a short recess to take some pictures. We'll be right back. Right, this brings us to our public comment portion of the meeting, and Attorney Alfonso will be reading the instructions for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the opportunity for the public to be heard on items of the board agenda or any other matter of relevance to the operation of Pasco County Schools. According to school board bylaws, each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak to address the board. To speak at this time, you should have already completed a speaker request card that you can get from the table at the entrance of the board room. If you have any attachments or documents that you wish to share with the board, you should provide them to the board secretary prior to making your comments. Speakers will be called to come forward to the podium by the board chair at the appropriate time. Prior to making your remarks, kindly state your name and address for the record. Please note that the board generally does not respond to remarks or questions made during public comment. The board will consider contacting the speaker directly after the meeting or asking the superintendent or his staff to do so at the appropriate time.
Okay, and typically what I do is I will announce the person that's to come up, but then I'll announce the person that's going to be next so they can be prepared and be on board to come up. So the first one is, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name, you'll correct it when you come up, please. Lee Beville. I should know that by now.
Hi, my name is Lee Double. I can double that. And I'm 37301 Manor Avenue, Jeffrey Hills, Florida. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak with you. I have a couple things I want to talk about. One is I would like to thank Ray Gadd. I don't think I've ever gotten to thank you because we have our wristband procedures that we do at the elementary school, and it has been a super success. I don't think we lose kids like we used to. I'm telling you, and on the radio, I'm telling you, we used to have radio say, where's this kid, where's that kid? Now we have a procedure to check them on the bus, check them off the bus. As long as we get the principals to follow the procedures, we'd be even better because they like to count them in classrooms and everywhere else. We count them at the door, we check them off, and we go on. That way we know what kids are on our bus, and it's the only place we can control that. But it is a great success, and I thank the superintendent and everybody for doing that because that was something that was, we had procedures, every school is different, some had no procedures, and it's worked out very well. The second thing is, I lose my train of thought a little bit here, but when we were talking about raises, and stuff like that, I know the school board is looking really hard into it. I'll give you a little history about me. I started here, I'm going on my 18th year this year. And it's a great job. It's a lot of work. driver. Everybody says, oh, I couldn't do your job. Unfortunately, we don't have enough people that will do our job. But we've made some strides towards that. We started 13.05 an hour. But for me, I've been here going on my 18th year. And what would be an average good raise for somebody that had been here over that period of time? You know, 20 cents a year, additional every year that you worked here, maybe 15 cents. Well, I'm averaging 6.5 cents a year. That's how much money I make on average over that time. Over a new driver to now, what I make now. 6.5 cents. Not very much. I think I do my job well. I haven't been called to the superintendent or many people that, so, and we have great drivers out there, but, we gave raises to people last year, but the people that were 12 years and on didn't get much. I mean, they got what everybody else got in the county, and we thank you for that. But when you raise the bottom part and you kind of forego the top part, you get a lot of people that are not really happy. And we need to keep good drivers and what we have in this county. So I'm going to leave it at that, in that, we need all the money we can get because it's a hard job. We have people that are making $9 an hour. We only work 188 days a year, 190 days a year. Not really a livable wage sometimes. We have second jobs and third jobs, but we do the best we can for what we do. And the problem is we're going to do the job even when we don't have people to do it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
All right, Anthony Ferraguni, and then after him, Lindsay Greenwich, or Ginjch. All right, so Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony Perugini, 7354 Crescent Palm Drive, Weston Chapel. So let's discuss teachers' wages. We're here every year discussing teachers' wages, but none of the time, or none of you say, let's increase the tax rate. This year, Broward County, Martin County, Hillsborough County's in talks, and another county already passed it in March. Many of these are passing 1 mil or half mil tax increases directly earmarked for teacher salary, instructional and non-instructional personnel. And what are we doing? We're looking for trying to get blood out of a rock. It's not going to happen. I mean, you look at these people all the time and say there's no money for it. But there's plenty of money. We're homeowners. Wouldn't we take a half mil to pay our teachers, pay our bus drivers? Why have you never asked that from the county? I mean, it's just pathetic in my eyes. I mean, Broward County is giving us 75% of the accrued taxes from this coming ballot for teacher salaries. And none of the money will go to charter schools. That's another earmark. You guys want to earmark these taxes so everybody can put their hands in the pot. Just give the pot to the teachers and the arts and the bands. And then we'll start all over and figure out where the rest of the money has to go. And that's where I stand. Thank you.
All right, Lindsay, and then Kenneth Blankenship. How do you pronounce your name?
Rick.
Rick, okay.
R-Y-C-H. My name's Lindsay Rick. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. I come as a parent of a first grader at New River Elementary in Weston Chapel. I just wanted to clarify kind of the policies and procedures of what's appropriate behavior. My son, in his first week of school, was put in disciplinary action because of using his finger while playing at recess, pretending he was, I guess, cops and robbers, best way of, using that. And I just wanted to see and clarify with the board if that's something that is disciplinary worth, taking a child out of recess, maybe even like feeling the shame because he was upset about it. So that was the first part. Secondly, was also disciplinary action steps if it was considered a non-appropriate behavior. And then third was also the Florida State statute, if you guys are aware of the Florida State statute, which is under, 1006.07, which is stating that a firearm, using a finger or hand to simulate a firearm or weapon is not considered supposedly under disciplinary action. And also that if the student is disciplined for such conduct, the school principal or his or her designee must call the student's parent. I was never called, I was never made aware until the teacher told me that if it continued that it would be going to administration. So.
Madam Chairman, if I may, that doesn't happen, does it? Dr. Skang, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if a student does this out on the playground.
Or can you take her outside and talk to her about it?
I want people to understand what.
I think normally it would be just a teacher conversation, so, but I hear, I'm not sure, I need to know the details, because it sounds like a teacher conversation.
Which we
You know.
did. We had a parent-teacher conversation with her and stuff, and she referenced in the code of conduct an imitation weapon or firearm, and I said, this is an imitation weapon or firearm? And she was like, well, I know it's fingers, but, and it was considered, it would still go to administration, and I clarified that with her.
If you can step out with Ms. Breach.
Rick.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And we'll get details and we'll get back with you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Skang.
All right, Kenneth?
Good job, Mom, good job.
And then Tammy, Holdock?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, board, Superintendent Browning, Attorney Alfonso, and as Robert Plant saying, it's been a long time since I rock and roll. Been a long time since I've been to the show. Teacher and Kenny Blankenship, 11040 Land Lakes, Lakeshore Drive, Land Lakes, Florida. Has been a long time. Teacher and SRP pay has never kept up with the cost of living here in Pasco. Not since I've been teaching, the last 22 years. And we are expected to do more and more with less and less. And that much less includes less room in our classes due to overcrowding the classrooms, students sitting on floors, taking notes, and less instructional materials. I have a class of 32 in my psychology class, and that's in a portable, one of the red square portables, 900 square feet. It's got a closet built into it, which takes it 180 feet away. So I've got 720 feet that I've got 32 students in. And I've only got 14 psychology books to teach psychology with. Now granted, books are on order and have been on order since last Monday, but I'm a week behind already. That less includes less respect and support from administration. And we have a respect and stability clause, and if a teacher or SRP looks cross-eyed at someone, they're called on the carpet. But when an administrator does it, crickets. Teacher and SRP morale are so low, and you pile more and more and more and more on us, more responsibility, more this, more that, but you're not willing to give us more in our wages, which we are due. We are more than due. 6 years without a pay raise, and I had the hair to prove it. It's time for this board to support your teachers and SRP and give us the pay raise that we're due without increasing our workload. Thank you.
And then after Tammy is Kenny Amathis. Hello.
Kenny Hodock, and my address is 9010 Marston Drive, Dade City, Florida. I have a daughter that goes to Pasco High School, and has been brought to my attention within the first 2 days of school that these kids' lunch has been cut back to 30 minutes a day when it was 50. Not to mention there's been time added on to the end of the day and taken from the beginning of the day to expand out the time in case there's hurricane days that they need to make up for something, so that they have the hours in class. Well, now you take their lunch from them and put them in a homeroom class that they do nothing in. Why? What's the sense in that? These kids are going in there, they're not getting lunch because they don't have enough time, or they sit down to eat and they have to go back to class, so they're not given enough time to eat. You got 4 lunches last year, 3 this year. You cut 1 lunch out. You have to extend these kids out of that 1 lunch into 3 other lunches. There's 1,600 kids or more in Pasco High School. How do you expect to feed 533 kids or more in 30 minutes after they stand in line? These teachers are saying they're not getting to eat. One child got 3 chicken wings and 4 pizza bread roll things for lunch today. That's it? For what, $4 a meal? Are you kidding me? My kid plays sports. She goes all day without eating. And then she goes out in the hot heat to play sports, whatever she's doing. These kids are football, cheerleading, volleyball's going on right now. These kids don't eat till they come home at 6, 7 o'clock at night by the time we get off work and get to them and get them home and cook for them. How's that in the best interest for our children? It's not. My child ate Scooby Snacks and Cheez-Its every day the last week. If she remembers to grab them on the way out the house. She's sitting back here now, she's had a headache all day because she doesn't get to eat in school. I try to make sure I stop in the morning and give her something. I've been told that if we bring food to them, they don't get it. It's tossed in the garbage. I better never find out that somebody took my kid's food and chunked it in the garbage because I took her something because she doesn't have enough time to eat in 30 minutes. These are messages from parents. Some of them are teachers, not just my school, Zephyr Hills High School, Wiregrass. This one in here states that they had the fire marshal there. They're in violation of a fire code because there's too many kids in the lunchroom. How's that safe for our kids? It's not. But we have to send our kids to school. Are they getting credit for this homeroom class that they have? They're in high school. They need credits to graduate. What's that class for? What are they supposed to be doing? Then these classes are overcrowded. My kid comes home and tells me they're sitting on the floor, they're trying to share seats with students. One child had to use a laptop as a desk to do her homework or do her schoolwork.
Thank you for your
30
comments.
kids in a class, you've got 37 or more. And then your grading policy. My kid can get up and go to school every single day and get the same grade that Johnny gets that doesn't go but 2 days a week.
Thank you
How's
for your
that fair?
comments. Your time's up. Thank you for your comments.
Kenny, and then Mike Cadet will be on board.
Good afternoon, board members, Superintendent Browning. I'm excited to be here tonight. My name is Kenny Mathis, 37635 Hidden Park Terrace, Dade City, Florida, 33525. First of all, I'd like to say I love seeing the sea of red, everybody. Give it up for Paul Gannon. I will always have your back, always. I have a couple concerns I'm going to list. First of all, class size. Number 2, lunch overcrowding. Number 3, the PHS grading policy. And number 4, about administrator at Pasco Middle School. Number 1, class size. I have been approached by many parents, students, and citizens of the community about class size. Now I do know, and I have been educating people, about schools of choice. 37 students currently per class in core classes. This is how we get around the amendment. They're calling all of our schools school of choice. And then using one of our schools, using a school-wide average. So schools of choice, and then they use a school-wide average. Schools of choice. Every one of our schools has at least one student enrolled who does not live within its attendance zone. So I'm just bringing up things that have been brought to my attention. I'm here tonight as the voice of the people. Number 2, lunch overcrowding. Ms. Holock just mentioned the problems with the lunches. Now granted, I've been in the system 20 years. I know that first week. You're working out class schedules, you're working out lunch schedules, so I do understand the first week. We are into week number 2, and we're still having some of the same problems that Mrs. Hodak just discussed with you. Okay? Now, what is the purpose of the change? I've been told FTE reports, equal instruction across the board for all schools in the county. You got to make sure it's equal. I've also heard about Hurricane Irma, making up times with Irma. That's up to you guys. I'm relating what has been told to me by the people. Number 3, PHS grading policy. Now, myself and a couple of educators worked this out. I worked 2 examples for you tonight. 2 examples of this. Let's say you have one student that is great at taking tests, and he figures out that assessments, he or she, are 70% weighted. And homework, formative assessment, or formative quizzes, because now in Pasco County the quiz is part of formative, and used to it wasn't. So let's say they do absolutely no homework, they sit in that classroom every day and don't do anything. And the bottom floor for that is the 30%, which equivalates, we're not supposed to give students lower than a 50 as a grade in the classroom. Now your summative is 70%. So if this child gets a grade of a 90, they get a 78C without doing any work in class. The opposite of that is also if you got a kid that's not great at tests, and they do all their homework and it's only weighted 30% and they fail all their tests weighted 70%. They get a 49% F. The last thing I'd like to talk about real quick, the Pasco Middle School staff would like to invite you to come interview all the teachers and the staff, the cafeteria manager, and everybody at Pasco Middle School about the administration. They are inviting you to come to that school and interview them about the problems with administration at Pasco Middle School.
Thank you for your comments.
You're very welcome. And I was glad to be here tonight. Thank you. Y'all have a great night.
Mike Today and then Cassie Hutchinson.
Thank you for having me. Mike Day, 15725 Wax Sweet Avenue, Spring Hill, Florida. Sorry I was a little late to the budget meeting. I put in those extra a little bit of time before I had to pick up Michael from place, and he's with me because I don't have anyone or could pay to anyone to watch him. I was a little disheartened as I walked in and I caught that one of the options that was being proposed and thought up here at district office and then having to be explained to teachers is the idea of having to work extra hours, that 6-7 idea, when realistically and with what I remember from negotiations a few years back, we actually worked really hard to try to protect as many of those planning hours as possible, having the 3 throughout the week. It's one of those things, we already put in that extra time, we always put in those extra hours, so saying that we're going to get paid for that isn't any better. Okay, it's one of those things where we're already working really, really hard. Now, I understand all the budget concerns, probably more than most being on the negotiation team as well for USEP. But one of the things that my parents raised me to be fiscally responsible. But they also raised me to understand that the responsibility piece and the definition of being responsible is not to budgets, it's not to reserve accounts, it's not to all these figures, it's to people. If we're not responsible to people, then we're not doing the one thing that right behind you guys, Pasco County School Board, we do one job, and that's to educate and make sure that we have successful kids and that they can have the best future that they can have. And we don't do that by undercutting the best asset we have, and that's our teachers. Okay. One of the things that really got me a little while back, and I've kind of been holding on to it for a little while, was especially with the teacher shortage that we have here in Pasco County, and the fact that we're getting cut and cut and cut, because I too have a class of 36 that I'm sitting at, and I worked through my lunch today as well, which again, not included in that paid extra time. But one of the things that really hit me hard was we're happy to have a job. That we should be happy to have a job. I will tell you, I'm not happy to have a job. I'm proud to serve the kids here in Pasco County. I'm appreciative for all the teachers that serve my son, and I'm blessed to work with the great educators that I work with on a daily basis. And we need to do everything we can to keep them and bring in more. Thank you.
be happy to have you as educators.
I feel your pain.
Cassie Hutchinson, 7110 Cuddy Sark Drive. Good evening, members of the school board. I'm here about that same issue, creating an additional class for teachers to teach in order to justify raises. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding here. Teachers need raises in Pasco, in Florida, and in the United States. Those raises need to come without obligations and in honor of what teachers do every single day and what they have been doing every day for decades. They do selfless work, they honor our students, they work for our students, and we should be giving them livable wages. Raises that are for more work are not raises. If you work at a 9-to-5 job and they ask you to put in an extra hour and they keep paying you for that extra hour, that's not a raise. If you do a little bit of math and round the starting salary at $38,000 and teachers teach 5 classes, that's $7,000 a class. So you're offering them less than half to teach an additional class. This is one of the only options for substantial raises. We need to be looking at substantial raises that don't require extra work because we need to be bringing our teachers up. This also isn't just extra time. It's more grading, it's more planning, and it's more preps. I taught in a district where we had 6 out of 7. I taught 3 preps. It was hard. I don't wish that on teachers here. How will you guarantee the number of preps that a teacher will teach? How will you promise us that you'll actually do that when you're promising to keep the class sizes small and we can already hear from multiple examples that they're overfilled? This completely disregards the educational environment. When you respect the educational environment, you help students thrive, you give teachers better environments to make a bigger impact on their students, and that's what our school board should be focusing on. This raise is substantial. I had a similar one the first year I started teaching, and it was nice, but there was still a lot of work in those 6 out of 7 classes, and that's because I didn't take the 7 out of 7 to get an extra 15%. I will refuse to consider this a raise when it comes with the caveats of extra work. We cannot settle for a raise that claims we can only do more for teachers if they do more for us. They've been doing plenty. It's time we recognize that. Thank you.
All right. Now is the time for United School Employees of Pasco.
Superintendent Browning, Attorney Alfonso, Chair Armstrong, honorable school board members and district staff, good evening. As I stand before you this evening, we've all heard numerous suggestions in regards to creating a revenue source to provide for salary increases. Some have more merit than others, but all are attempts to find funding to meet this concern, which all of you have publicly stated you want to happen. I have given you information to look at. We have had Emily McCann from the Florida Education Association show you some sources for funding, and many questions have been asked and answered here today. Our main concern is to focus on how to make something significant happen for our employees this year. We understand what the district staff proposed during the workshop, but as a 39-year teacher, my initial response is that I am troubled at the thought that the only way I can see an increase in my salary is to add to my workload and contracted day. While we appreciate the staff being creative and innovative, as I've asked all of you to do, I do not feel that we should be funding salary increases on the backs of our already hardworking teachers. This, as I understand it, would be a multi-year proposal, which may or may not address this year's financial situation adequately. We would have to talk further with employees to garner thoughts and ideas on this long-term solution. However, it is early, and I would be happy to have further conversation on the district's proposal and investigating the possibility of whether this would work for us or not. But the immediate problem still remains, and that is solving the salary adjustment issue for this year in a manner that puts us competitive with statewide salary scales. If we are indeed looking at long-term solutions, I again raise the idea of forming a district union joint task force to look at initiatives as an alternative source of income. There are timelines tied to these proposals, and we at the union have had several conversations already with consultants to explore options if this is something the district would partner with us to accomplish. Saturday's paper, statewide headlines, dire need to hire teachers. As of 2:30 today, there were 78 posted instructional vacancies online on the Pasco website. This is very similar to what happened last year. At an average of $60,000 per vacancy, including benefits, that amounts to $4.7 million. Currently, with the rollover from last year at a 10-year average of approximately $3 to $3.5 million, and new student FTE monies, along with the insurance reserve fund surplus, it appears to us that adequate funds should be available to provide meaningful increases for all employees this year. We understand that final numbers would probably not be available until after the AFR, but this appears to be the route to go for now. I have given Peggy some suggestions based on your questions. Your number one priority is to our students, but your number one obligation is to your employees. On another topic, we would hope that the district would be willing to work with us on language reflecting the agreements accomplished through our collaborative teacher evaluation work group. The heavy lifting has already been done by the work group, and all that remains is agreeing on contract language to reflect the work done away from the table and providing assurances regarding the process to both administrators and teachers alike. It is our intent to bring our instructional bargaining group together tomorrow to prepare a response in an effort to finalize this process. The SR teams are close to finalizing all but economics and are also looking forward to the conversation of wage increases. We continue to strive to work towards making Pasco the best we can for all of our students and all of our employees. Thank you for what you do.
Now is the time for school board member committee reports.
No, it does not. Not this coming week.
No committee meetings this
I had no committee meetings. You had none?
No, I had none.
Oh, okay, well, that leaves the heavy lifting to me. I've got, was hoping I have time to pull them up. I had two. The first was Health and Wellness Committee meeting, and we're continuing to look at ways to expand what we can do for the employees as far as the health incentives. Also looking at our strategic goals. This year, of course, we added on Healthy Beginnings, which is targeted towards young women that might become pregnant or women that are pregnant, so we can make sure that they're healthy going into their pregnancy. That would be well worth it to make sure they're healthy, and also helps cut our insurance costs. It was always pointed out to us by our consultants that with our wellness centers, the benefit that we have there, being able to keep our insurance costs down so that we had no increase in our insurance costs this year. It's allowed us to not increase premiums. It's something that I can thank all employees for the use of Care Here. So please continue to use Care Here. Save on the fact that you do not have copay and you get a lot of generic medications free. You're helping yourself. You're also helping the district hold down your insurance costs. So thank you so much for helping us in that endeavor. The other meeting that I had was the Investment Oversight Committee. Investment Oversight Committee, we looked at, besides going over our investments, which actually did very good last quarter, also looked at possibly going for COPS for the new technical high school in the east side of the county, that if we can bond that money through COPS, that would allow us to get that built sooner. And also we've got some bus leases coming up to replace some of our older buses, which will make me very happy, I'm sure. All right, so that's my report. So that brings us to Superintendent Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I want to speak, matter of fact, Mr. Peace made the point about the number of vacancies. I do want to say that we are much better positioned this year than we have been in the previous 3 years. We're not where we need to be, but to keep everything in perspective, in the 15-16 school year, we went into the school year with 440 vacancies. This is teacher vacancies. 16-17, we dropped to 144. In 17-18, we dropped to 89, which was last school year, and this school year, we started with 64. So we have 64 classroom teacher vacancies. HRAQ continues to work to fill those 64 teaching positions, and they've done a remarkable job, they and their team, trying to get those addressed. Let me address the lunch issue. There's been some press regarding the lunch issue, as well as some pretty vitriolic tweets and Facebook posts, which in many instances are not based on fact. It's been based on hearsay. That being the case, I made it a point yesterday to start my day at Pasco High School, and I spent a good part of my morning there in the cafeteria, watching, looking, talking to students about their experiences. I actually timed serving lines. Ms. Dean, Director of Food Nutritional Service, was with us. Tammy Berryhill, the Assistant Superintendent for High Schools, was there. What I personally saw was not what is being conveyed. Literally, I timed students that there was a significantly long line yesterday at Pasco High School. When I timed a student going through that line, it literally took 6 minutes and 2 seconds from the time that that student got in the line to the time that they went in, got their meal, and checked out at the register. I will tell you, and I will readily admit, that Pasco High School has some issues. I think Ms. Dean and I have talked about that. It's an old cafeteria. Matter of fact, when I walked through that cafeteria yesterday, it's the same lunch line that I went to 42 years ago. It hasn't changed much. The only thing that's not there is Francis Bellman. But there's salad lines which are inherently slower than the hot meal line. We were getting kids through there. One of the complaints is that kids were having to stand to eat. I did not see any students standing yesterday. Matter of fact, the complaint was there was no place to sit. There were plenty of seats in the cafeteria that I saw yesterday. They sit outdoors in the outdoor seating area. They sit inside in the cafeteria. The lines, students have choices. They certainly have more choices than we ever thought about having. If you want to eat lunch when we were in school, you got one thing. That's what they served. Now they serve hot meals, they serve a la carte, they serve salad bar. They're actually doing the vending machines as well. So I'm not quite sure why a student would go home and say that I didn't have the opportunity to eat, because there was in fact plenty of time for students to be served, and ample time, plenty of time for students to sit there and eat the meal before they rush off to the next class. I left there, I went to Wiregrass Ranch High School. I got there during meal lunch. They had 3 lunches. Quite honestly, I was shocked when I walked into the cafeteria, because I thought that what I was going to find was bedlam. And I found quite the opposite at Wiregrass Ranch High School. Ms. White and her team
under control. It is a crowded facility. I will tell you that there was a meeting today with the county fire marshal and our fire official. The actual capacity of that room is 460. It is not the 300 that's been reported. It was posted at 300, and they worked with the fire marshal to make sure that the calculation that they had for that cafeteria were in compliance with the fire code. And so the capacity of that facility is 460 students. When I walked in there were no students standing up eating lunch. There were plenty of seats available. Literally, when I walked in there were hardly any students in line to get a meal. When they dismissed the B lunch or C lunch to come in, it was orderly. The students went out the rear doors. They waited a minute, and C lunch comes in. I personally timed the students coming in to be served lunch. It was a full cafeteria, and almost without exception, every one of the students had been served lunch in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. They were seated, they were eating, and more importantly, they were socializing. And I will tell you what I'm finding to be the case, because where we went from 50 minutes to 20 minutes, and I will say in large part, it came, 30 minutes, from 50 to 30 minutes. It came when we went through Irma, and we lost 6 days of school. And it's like peeling back that onion. When you start digging this one back, you find some other problem. And I will tell you, Pasco High School was the worst offender based on their master schedule. They actually had 4 full days that they had to make up. And that's when we started tacking on minutes at the end of the day. It went different for every school. So that's how this conversation started. And then we started talking about getting instructional minutes back to be able to meet the number of minutes that we had to statutorily meet in the event of lost school days. So what we have done is we went from 50 to 30 minutes. The other 20 minutes was intervention time. It was deemed as instructional minutes, and the county gets the instructional minute required time that we needed in those schools. But I will tell you, I did not, and I know that I am not going to sit here and tell you that we did not experience issues the first day or the first week. Just like I told the student that got in my face yesterday, politely, somewhat, but I told her, I said, you know what, we are still working out the bugs the first day, first week, just like you're trying to find your classroom. But I will tell you, based on what I saw yesterday with Pasco High School and Margaret Ranch High School, the issues, we don't have issues that are not being worked out. I think it's an unjust characterization of our high schools and the staffs of those schools to indicate that kids, where we got a report that kids were having to go to the bathroom to eat lunch. That never happened at Margaret Ranch High School. Never. So when these characterizations take place, then and it hits social media, it becomes fact. And I'm telling you that when I started reading some of the reports out there on social media, I took it upon myself to get to Pasco High and Margaret Ranch High and see for myself. I did not see anything that remotely resembled what was being reported in social media. That being the case, we have all the data. We can tell you what time your child went through the line, what time they got there or paid for their meal, and that goes against the start time of that lunch. And we are finding that it is not that lengthy. Again, some lines are longer than others. The salad line is horrendous because they all want to build their own salad. Well, that's going to take more time. But if you really want to eat, then go to a faster line that is either serving the hot meal or the hot fries. I mean, there's no excuse, no reason why kids are not eating lunch at school. That being said, last thing, that's all I'm going to say about lunch times. We continue to monitor that, and we will continue to work with staff and the school-based staff to get those problems, any problems addressed. Finally, you have on your desk, there's an off-agenda item to adjust bell schedules at 5A High School and Zephyr Hills High School. Ms. Coon will speak to those in just a little bit, but those are just a couple minutes here and there because of some things that are going on in those two particular schools. Let me just tell you, 5A High School was a significant increase in student population. They need another minute or two to get between classes. Zephyr Hills High School's new construction. We're getting ready to rip that place apart. We're starting a new 500-seat classroom student station building, and it's just taking more time to get to class. So that's what's happening with that on the agenda item. So that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Gadd?
You know, I don't want to belabor a point, but I do think it's important. I want to just share something to echo what the superintendent said. And, you know, sometimes when you're dealing with kids and stuff, things get a little life of their own. And we had a parent that sent us an email. I don't think all the board got it. I think maybe Ms. Bowden got it as I look at the email. But it was about the lunches, and I was concerned about it, of course, immediately, first day of school. So I asked Ms. Adai, our Director of Food and Nutrition, to follow up on it. And we had a youngster that was in B lunch and had come home and told his mother, you know, that he couldn't get lunch, all these problems and different things like that. So she was able to respond to the parent, and B lunch started at 11:26. And the mother later found out through an email that her son, in fact, got lunch at 11:26 on the first day of school, and at 11:27 on the second day of school, and at 11:27 on the third day of school. The response we got from the mother, and it's a matter of public record, was, I so very appreciate you following up on this and the thoroughness of your research. It is certainly understood that there is an adjustment period at the beginning of the year. I appreciate the fact that additional tables were added. You can certainly understand that it was a bit concerning to hear, especially for those kids that may come from families that are struggling and depend on school breakfast and lunch, that their meals, very blessed that this is not the case in our house. My husband and I find it very reassuring to know that our inquiries are reviewed and addressed thoroughly and quickly. Again, much appreciation to you all. Sincerely, the parent. And that was Zephyr Hills High School, where we apparently had a problem, and that was the response of a mother who I suspect probably had a conversation with her son after she got our response. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Shipley.
The only item I have this evening is there were some addenda to item 10.1 that have been uploaded into board docs.
Yes, Mrs. Coon?
Hi, good evening. Also have the off-agenda item that Superintendent Browning referenced, that's 15.4, and that is to change the bell times effective August 29th at Zephyr Hills and also 5A. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and then also wanted to let you know, to Mrs. Bowden's point at the workshop, we are launching the thought exchange related to summer camps today, so that link is out, so we will be asking schools to share that. I know it's early in the school year to be asking for that. We wanted to make sure that we ask for feedback while camp is still fresh on everyone's mind, and summer is still fresh on everyone's mind before we get too far into the school year. We forget about what we did in the summer. So that is out and will be open until August 31st, and I look forward to sharing the feedback we get with you. And then also just wanted to thank the operations department. We have many of them here tonight for a very smooth first week of school. I know there were some issues, but I'm just proud of the teamwork that everyone showed. We think it was a great success, so thank you.
Just going to reiterate what Ms. Kuhn just shared, and that we've been on many of our elementary campuses so far this week and last week, and definitely was a smooth start. That was a reoccurring theme from our principals and teachers' mouths, and that doesn't happen by accident. It's definitely a direct correlation to all the preparation that went in this summer and during planning week on behalf of our teachers. So just want to thank all of them for the hard work they put in.
Okay, move on. Mrs. Hill.
All right, good evening. Of course, we are so grateful for those smooth starts of welcoming our over 70,000 children onto our school campuses, and so pleased that we made it through our first week and started our second week. Next week, we'll host our first coaching conference of the year, setting those awesome instructional support roles up for success in 18-19. We will also have our adult education graduation ceremonies next week, which is a great opportunity to celebrate the success stories of those folks. I also just wanted to make mention, we talked about this briefly during the workshop, but Ms. Musselwhite from Student Support Programs and Services received a couple of questions from Mr. Altman and Ms. Bowden regarding the contract with Phyllis Jones Consulting. It's item 11.2 in the board packet. That contract is part of our Title IV grant. I mentioned that, again, just briefly in the board workshop. Just a reminder, that is the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grant. That contract in particular is to provide professional development through one-on-one direct coaching and modeling of inclusive best practices. So while it's directed towards our exceptional student education teachers who serve students who require intensive interventions and specially designed instruction, it'll have a broader impact than that because those teachers provide support in inclusive settings. So that contract is part of the larger grant, and I mentioned the other components of the grant during the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I also just want to briefly echo what Ms. Kuhn and Ms. Pogue said about our awesome start. Of course, we welcome back students and staff, and the word of the week was definitely smooth from both administrators and teachers, and of course that takes a lot of planning and hard work on their part, so we appreciate it. Priority schools, we have a number of those at elementary, middle, and high, and we are proud to report we've already walked 209 priority classrooms across the 3 levels, and that is definitely a collaborative effort with OLL and SSPS and the superintendent staff. So 209 classrooms, like I mentioned, we've been in. We will get through the rest of those before the end of next week. And in those visits, we're setting the purpose for the year together with their teams to find out what their needs are and how we can best support them as they work to grow student achievement at all of our priority schools.
Yes. High schools have been going smooth as well. We've had a few little things going on at a couple of our schools, but we're working on that. And so I wanted tonight to recognize your recommendation. Matt Hayes is being recommended for an assistant principal position at Zephyr Hills High School for 216, and if Matt would stand. Mr. Hayes has been with Pasco County School District since 2010. He was a science teacher at 5A High School. He moved over to Zephyr Hills High School, has served as a science teacher, and then this year, maybe some of last year, quasi-coaching, some other science staff, and now into leadership. And so we're happy to have him and being recommended tonight.
Thank you.
And he is joined by his wife.
All right. I'd like to recognize.
He was a teacher at Woodland Elementary School.
Yeah.
Congratulations. All right. All right. So that brings us to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion. Anybody? That's right. I'm sorry.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda with the agenda item 10.1.
Second. All right. First by Altman, second by Crumley. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
I'll move approval of considered an off agenda item 15.4.
All right. We'll go ahead and do that. All right. We got a first by Altman, second by Lukehart for off agenda item. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Off agenda item is the bell schedule. The bell schedule. To approve. Okay, we got a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. First by Bodwin, second by Altman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to miscellaneous action items. The first being the interagency agreement with Pasco Juvenile Assessment Center. Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
First by Altman, second by Lukehart. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Second is proclamation on Attendance Awareness Month. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
First by Altman, second by Bodwin. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Suicide proclamation, Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
So moved.
Second.
All right. First by Crumley, second by Altman, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to individual board member reports.
Nothing at the time.
Madam Chair, I got a couple of the phone calls and an email from parents of Mr. Hayes. And I met at Zephyr Hills High School the other day during lunchtime, and Principal Stone threw him right into the fray, right at the very beginning, and gave him a list of people to call back and things to talk to. But I can I guess, echo what Ms. Berryhill and the superintendent said. I was there, and I watched, and there were multiple empty seats available in the cafeteria, and they were all through and done, what was it, 19 minutes, wasn't it?
It was 10 to 12 minutes.
10 to 12 minutes there, but at 19, everybody was done and through. So I think that some of the issues have been taken care of and addressed because they certainly seem to be flowing smoothly when I was there. So those three high schools that we had received emails about, there have been people in each of them monitoring and looking at them. I had the opportunity to go speak to the new Rotary Club in Zephyr Hills and talk about the Woodland Elementary that we're just finishing up and what we're doing in the beginning of Zephyr Hills High School that's about to break ground, and had discussion with them about capital issues that are going on there in that community, and then also visited with the Zephyr Hills City Council to present the deed for the Hercules property that we exchanged to them for park, in addition to the ability to be able to take those corners and add some money to our capital budget. So I made that presentation to them on behalf of the board.
I spent some time at Connerton Elementary School with Dr. Skanka, following up on some emails and calls, and I was happy to report that everyone said things were going smoothly, but it was day 3, and when we walked through that school, you would never have known it was only the 3rd day of school. The kids knew the routines, they were on task, they were learning. You would never know it was the 3rd day of school. They were engaged. I want to follow up on a couple of things that some of the speakers said. Mr. Perugini, I will forward you the email. I've done research on them, and we have talked about it a couple of times as a board, considering looking at millage increase. And I have some research that I have from FSBA, and I will forward it to you. I don't know if you still get it, but I have it. I've looked at I had FSBA tell me what other districts were doing. Would they, those that had it, those that didn't, those that were looking into it, and what they were using it for. So I will happily share that.
I just want to say we want to pay more taxes. We're getting a 3rd homestead. I'm willing to take that and pay taxes to the school.
And we already talked about the lunches, I think. I've also been asked about class sizes, and I've been told that we're going to look at balancing at the 20-day count and by October. And as far as the grading concerns, I've watched the video that the principal at Pasco High School posted online. And as someone who's been teaching a long time, I don't really see what's all that new about it, because formatives and summatives are quizzes and tests. And we've always had that, and we've always wanted students
toured Wendell Krant, our new technical high school, yesterday afternoon, and the transformation physically from the end of the school year to the beginning here, it's amazing. We were working hard also. That's really, really beautiful. I like the logo with the little gear or whatever that, what is that? It's a gear. Okay, it's very, really spectacular. The place is beautiful. I went into all the classrooms with the principal. They're having some transportation issues that I know we're working on, and we'll just get an update later. I'll ask for an update later, but everything looked like it went very smoothly there. Some of the kids that initially signed to go there have not wound up going there, so I believe that we're looking at going to the waiting list or something for these students. I don't know, I'll get more information from you. Went to Gulf High School also today, and 5A High School today, since those were our high schools taking in a lot of the new students, and as you said about the Bell schedule, they had taken in a lot of new students at 5A High, but from walking around there, organized, everybody just working hard. What a great job the principal has done there, taking in 600 new students this year. Some allocation stuff as Mrs. Berryhill said they're working on, and also at Gulf High, Kim Davis, again, what a great job in welcoming. She had about 400 new students there. She's doing a freshman retreat today, and she had a motivational speaker. It was fantastic to watch, and these were all new kids coming in that maybe necessarily didn't want to be there, and they were all excited and pumped up watching this freshman retreat. Was really, really good, and again, walking around there, you wouldn't have known this was week 2, so that's all I have to add right now.
Okay. All right, and I do want to, as serving on the legislative committee for FSBA for us, I do want to direct you to an email that we received about the FSBA. They put together their priority list of legislative issues. Please look at that and let me know if there's anything that you see amiss. And also I'd like staff, if you would look at those priorities on the FSBA. If you need me to forward the email, I will. And if you see anything that looks of concern to us or anything that we need to, for me to address, because towards the end of September, I will be going to the legislative committee, and we'll be voting on formalizing that list. So it's September. So let me know, and then it'll go from the legislative committee. It'll go to the board of directors.
And they're all in the funding section.
Yes, you're in the okay, good. So you've already looked at it, so that's good. So definitely take a look at that, please, and let me know if you have any concerns. All right. So that is all for me. Staff, anything else? All right. Attorney Alfonso.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I know that's disappointing.
Yes. We always have that. Right.